It's Brian Preston, the Money Guy.
I've got a question for you guys. Jared is going to kick us off. He says, I just completed my first year in the workforce since college. I immediately started saving 20% towards retirement. Nice. Good for you, first of all. So the question is, will this forced scarcity-induced brokenness ever go away as a financial mutant?
It's a great question.
Man, Jared, you're dropping some dimes there, and the fact that you threw out forced scarcity, which is definitely an on-brand. I mean, did he say financial mutant? It was
he did
so.
say
I mean,
mutant.
man, it was Jared. You are crushing. And then he's already at 20% in his 20s. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, he will be a client at some point. Graduating to the next level. It's just a matter of when. So, Jared, this is the reality of the situation, is that you have to ask yourself, what's the why? Why are you doing this now? Because I do want to caution you. I had to pick on Bo about this when he was in his late 20s. I was like, Bo, make sure you're not missing the decades. Make sure you're a financial mutant, but you're also enjoying each age of your life. And that's why I always talk about the bedazzled basic life is, I traveled to Europe with my wife in the cheapest ways possible before we had kids. We did all this stuff for just so cheap. But we also didn't, it wasn't nice. It was there's a reason I call it bedazzled basic. But it is one of those things where I think it's okay if you know your why, because it will give you, it's no different than putting on the refrigerator or the mirror that you get dressed in of what you want to envision for yourself, because that gives you the purpose to stay focused, but also not to cut corners. And I will tell you, yes, it gets a lot easier. But I'm going to be realistic with you. Probably not until your 40s. I mean, maybe you're in your 30s, but maybe you do well. I mean, maybe you can tell them. Maybe it does get easier. But I feel like you go from your 20s where every dollar is so valuable on the exponential growth. The money multiplier. Go check it out. moneyguy.com/resources. Then in your 30s, there's a lot of life stuff happening with the messy middle. Yep. So that always pulls at you because you're still investing. It's really the 40s where I felt the first time I felt like, man, I got a lot of this working for me, because you're also, now your money's had 20 years to kind of not only grow, sprigs of growth, but now it's truly taken root, and it's starting to generate, lots of prosperity and fruit for you, because your money can make as much as you do now. So I'm telling you, Jared, stay the course. It will pay off. It just might be in a decade or two from now.
Yeah, I think two things are really interesting. Like when I was in my early 20s, I felt super broke because I was trying to save. I wasn't making a ton of money, and so everything kind of felt tight. But what it did for me is it taught me how to live in that place. It taught me how to live tight and have forced scarcity. Now, I've tried to run this game the entire time that I've been married. I try, because we do pay yourself first, because we try to put money in different places, I try to still convince my wife that it's broke. Well, what you'll find in your financial life as you do your annual net worth template, and by the way, if you're not starting that now in your first year, you should. Go to learn.moneyguy.com. Start doing a net worth statement right now, because your future self will be so happy that you tracked it through. What started to happen for me as I got into my late 20s and early 30s is I got to actually see the product of my hard work. Those Roth contributions that felt so hard to do when I was 21, 22 years old, when I got into my 30s, I was like, holy cow, when did my Roth get that big? Holy cow. Well, now, it's not a question of, can I max this account out or can I do that? It just kind of happens naturally over time, but you have to keep working that muscle. What you can't do is start doing forced scarcity right now and put your savings level here, and then as your income level increases, you don't allow it to chase. There's nothing wrong with your income increases to increasing lifestyle. I mean, we only get one spin on this earth, so we want to make sure that we don't just maximize the future, we also maximize the present. So you have to figure out how to find that balance. If I'm saving 20% now and I get a pay raise next year, I want to save 20% of that pay raise. Well, that still leaves money for me to increase lifestyle and do more stuff. So as your financial life changes, it does get a little bit easier. And I remember thinking this early on in my 20s. God, everything's so expensive. I got to go buy a car, and then I got to go buy a house. I got to get married. I got to have some kids. All these big life things. Well, eventually, the big life things start to slow down a little bit, and you kind of get a little bit more breathing room, at least from a financial perspective, and it's just a natural progression. I would not over worry about will it get better. I would more focus on, am I doing what I know I should be doing? And if that's the case, your future self is going to be in a great position.
Well, I would think about it because, look, the journey to becoming financially independent, it's definitely a marathon. Or I could say but you need to focus on eating this big elephant one bite at a time. And you said all those things that are pulling on top of you, but I have a mental exercise to help you really kind of give you perspective. If you're in your early 20s, and this might sound a little dark, but it's something that you can do as a math exercise. You got 60 years, 70 years? Can you give me 15 where you live like no one else, you're saving, giving up that little bit for that great big beautiful tomorrow? Give me 15 years, and then you get easy street on the other 50 plus years. I mean, because that's what I look at here I am, I'm still a few years from 50, but it's one of those things where what I got 30 years left. It's so much easier now. I mean, it's just so much easier now because I made some good decisions. I still have great memories because I did make sure I bedazzled my basic life. That's the thing, because you'll go look at our comments section on some of our shows. You'll see people who will confirm, and you'll probably even get some on this show because when this highlight goes out, is because there's a lot of people in their 50s and 60s who wish they'd have found this advice in their 20s because now they're scrambling. And then instead of having this abundance of you now get to do things when you want, how you want, and because you want to do it, you're doing life on your terms. So a lot of people still having to do things because they have to. That's what you're trying to avoid.
I think at age 40, you get to make the choice. Do I get to take my foot off the pedal, or do I have to put my foot down on the pedal? And the way you're going to be able to make that decision is the decisions you make in your 20s and 30s.